if you remember back to December, we all took the survey that we have been taking for many, many years. And so now we have the results. And so the one and only Sandra Johnson is here again to present the results to you. Big green button goes forward, and goes back.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. Happy sunny day. It almost makes me feel like spring is on the way, with the exception of the ice rink out of my driveway. So yes, I am here to share with you the Denison survey results. And I'm going to just kind of briefly touch on the circumplex again. You probably recall this from December, which was not that long ago, but the results come back in the form of a circumplex. And the circumplex has 4 quadrants, so you can see each quadrant has a different color to it. And each of these quadrants represent a grouping of subcategories, which are also in those kind of pie areas. I'm not going to talk through each of those, but a couple of things that we know is when an organization has more color, so that to kind of think of it that way, the more color you have, the more consistency you have amongst all of the staff, the more aligned you are. And when we see an organization that has a lot of color in the blue and the red, that tells us that this is a growth-focused organization. When we see a lot of color in the red and yellow, this means that this is an organization that is focused on efficiency and profitability. And green and yellow represents quality and employee satisfaction. So that's sort of some other categories to think about. And then when we have an organization that is strong in the blue and green, that represents innovation and customer service focus. Of course, what we would really like to see is a balance of all of those. So our goal is always to have a full circumplex, and of course, the more color we have, the stronger the alignment. So we can see here an example of a full circumplex, and this is showing a high-performing organization. When you have a little bit of white or a department, if you see some white, it means that there's probably some confusion or some inconsistency within that grouping. And of course, if you are in an area where you see a lot of white, this means that the performance level is probably not as high as it could be, and that's probably due to the fact that there's maybe some confusion and uncertainty within that particular group. So our goal is to try to get to the highest performance area and have the most color. So if you recall from our December survey, I shared with you the 2019 scores, which were actually the best ever here for the convention center. And so that was taken just before COVID hit, and so kind of at the height of really all the exciting things that were going on at the convention center. So I thought it would be fun to pull up that 2019 circumplex and compare that to your actual 2022 results. And this is what we see. So if you think about the idea of wanting to have balance in all of those 4 quadrants and also to have a full color circumplex, you can see that actually the 2022 results were even stronger than 2019, which was your best year ever. So that tells us a lot about the organization. That tells us that during those difficult years, which there was kind of a 3-year gap there, there was a lot going on in the city. A lot of you had to adapt and adjust and wear multiple hats. We kind of talked about that a little bit in December. And during that time frame, you maybe were seeing some friends that got laid off, and maybe you got laid off for a period of time. So this was not an easy time frame. Yet, to see the scores come back this high is really, really wonderful. It really says a lot about you, and I applaud that to you. That is saying that you pulled together as a team, you supported each other, and helped to make the convention center the best, even during the not best times. So we also, as you might recall, on the last page of that survey, you were asked to identify what team that you were on. And this is really helpful because we can now look at smaller groups and identify where might we have some work to do, where there's some real consistency, and where might there be some opportunities where there's some uncertainty and inconsistency. So I'm not going to read through all of these. You can kind of see where your group lines up. One question that you might have is that N at the bottom, that equals how many people took that survey from that particular group. And here are some other groups. So you can see there's a couple of teams that have some white and some teams that have, on this page in particular, that have a full circumflex. So that is really, again, an indication that maybe in your team meetings, you might want to bring forward if there's some things that you want to work on or some things you're not certain about, things that don't make sense to you. You want to bring that forward to your manager, and your manager will be reaching out to you, and that can kind of help clear some of that uncertainty up. All right, so we have a little bit of detail that I want to show you. So again, I'm bringing back the complete one. So what we just saw previously was it broken down by department and by team. But when you pull it all together, you have a score that's called the composite score. This was the first grid that I showed you, so I just wanted to bring us back to that just to remind you that even though on some teams there might be some work that you have to do, when you put it all together, overall the organization is scoring really high. Award-winning high, by the way. All right, so that information then is taken, and that along with your impact meetings and some of the other surveys that you have taken are used to really help the leadership team put together the strategic plan. So to share that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff.